Hello everyone, today is the sixth class. Today we will class the steps in the counseling process. If we approach the counseling to the client and some kind of steps one by one to approach the counselors, approach to the client. So what kind of processing steps? So several kind books introduce the steps, but I choose only 10 steps in the counseling process. Today we will class, I introduce the 10 steps in the counseling process. This belongs to essential of counseling. So one by one we approach, and then last week we have behavioral counseling especially. So and then next is behavioral peacemaking, how to overcome the fear and anxiety and depression, anger, something like that. Okay, let's start this class. The 10 steps for counseling are to establish basic ground rules. What do you do, when you do, and how you operate. These 10 steps is I introduced one by one. So let me say again. The 10 steps for counseling are establish the basic ground rules. The content is what you do, how you operate. First, is encourage the clients talk about the feeling. So it means is encourage to the clients to talk about the client's feeling. This is first steps. And second is validate the feelings. First, encourage. To the client, to the feeling. And second is validate the feeling with reflective listening. Validate. Means is validate the feeling, client's feeling with reflective listening. I'm ready for listen about your feeling or your feeling or contents. And third is let the client have the chance to speak. The client wants to say, and then let the client have the chance to speak. Say to the counselors. So I'm ready for listen you speak. This is the third step. And next step is provide missing information where needed. So the provide missing information. It means is I suggest or show to the clients some kind of missing information where you need it. So the clients need something to speak, and then I provide your missing information, and I ask, and then say, this is conversation. And next step is talk about the client's view and goals. Views and goals. So the clients have some views and goals. So the counselors say to feel free to clients, I'm ready to talk about your views and goals. What is your idea? What is your impression or something like that. This is a talk about the client's views and goals. And next, communicate what it takes to get to the point needed. Communicate. So between counselor and the clients communicated what it takes to get to the point needed. What the point? What's the keyword? Key point. So they are communicated with the client. And next step is the observe signs of trouble and prepare for possible violence and treat. So it's observe signs about the troubles. Observe signs about the trouble. What kind of trouble? And prepare for possible violence. So several steps to observe signs of trouble, the client's trouble. So and prepare for possible violence and threats. The clients feel or have some violence and threats. So these things be prepared by counselors. And next is encourage clients to develop positive energy towards devising a solution with courage. So the counselors get all the information and communicate and observe the signs and possible violence and threat. And next, the counselors encourage to the clients to develop the positive energy. So give to the positive word. So the counselors develop the positive energy towards the devising a solution. Suggest some kind of solution. Devised solution. And next 9 steps is establish a regular schedule for follow-up discussion and give feedback. Schedule and feedback. It means is the counselors encourage to the clients towards devising a solution, and then next the counselors establish a regular schedule for follow-up discussion. We are saying to follow-up discussion and feedback from client. So establish regular schedule and give feedback. The last step is agree on what steps are needed to be taken by the client to change the current situation. So it means last step is agree on. All procedure make conclusions. Agree on with clients. So counselors step by step to the clients, and then last clients agree on what steps are needed to taken by the client to change the current situation. Now situation, blah, blah, blah. And then client, the counselors suggest to some solution or feedback and agree on with a client what the steps. So these things is to 10 steps in counseling process. 10 steps. But some books is 7 steps, some books 8 steps. But anyway, the sorting is these procedure followed. This letter to 7 or 8 is not concerned that. Okay. So these things is the 10 steps of counseling establish a basic ground rules. So follow this procedure and then approach the early on with the client. Okay, and this next. The next is the step can be classified into 5 separate stages. If we approach the 10 steps in the counseling and then 5 stages. 5 stages. The sorting is something like the 10 steps, another sorting there. So these steps can be classified into 5 stages. I introduce the 10 steps and then these steps classified into 5 stages. Stage 1. 5 stages. Stage 1. This is a relationship building. First stage is relationship building. So initial disclosure means initial disclosure. So the first step involves building a relationship and focuses on engage client to explore issues that directly affect them. The first interview is important because the client is reading the verbal and non-verbal message and make inferences about the counselor and the counseling situation. Means is the first step is encourage the client to talk about the feeling. So through the encouraging the clients, talking about the client's feeling, and then the first step involves building a relationship first between counselor and client. So and then also the first step is focuses and engaging client engaging the ego mind to explore issues, talking about the feeling, and directly affect them. The first interview is very important because the client is reading the verbal and non-verbal message. That's why this first step is very important. So the first stage is relationship building. So relationship could imply the ties between two people in love, the bond between family members, or close friends, or colleagues, or even the bond between the person and his or her pet. So the relationship is between the family member, close friends, and colleagues, even the bonds between the person and the pet. So anyway, the two people bonds make relationship. So in counseling, the counselor establish reports with the clients based on trust, respect, and mutual purpose. So say again, the counselors give to the clients based on the trust, respect, and mutual purpose. And then they good relationship. When there is a good rapport, a positive psychological climate is created, and vice versa. See. So Carl Rogers has also emphasized the importance of building a relationship between the counselor and the client. He emphasized the importance of building a relationship. He identified 3 important conditions for the establishment of the effective counselor-client relationship. First is empathy. Second, geniusness, and unconditional care. He suggests 3 important conditions: empathy, geniusness, and unconditional care. Empathy, geniuses, and warmth are 3 conditions that enhance relationship building in the counseling situation. These qualities are conveyed to the client through verbal and non-verbal behaviors of the counselor. The greatest obstacle in the relationship building stage is the tendency for the counselor to move too quickly. It's very greatest obstacle. See? Move too quickly. The tendency. It is also important for the counselor to be sensitive and responsive to each client worldview point. For forming rapport and gaining the client trust. What kind of that? First is assuring confidentiality and discussing limits of confidentiality. What will we give the confidentiality? And allow ventilation. Also allowing expression of feelings. Also exploring the problem, asking the client to tell their story. It means the clients open to mind to the counselor their story. Also clarifying clients' expectations of counseling. Also describing what the counselors can offer and their method of work. Statement from the counselor about their commitment to work with the client. It's a statement. So some skills for relationship building for the counselors I introduced. There's some keyword. How do we build the relationship for the counselors? Some kind of skills I introduced. So first, introduce yourself. What I am. And second keyword is invite client to sit down. The client invite the client. The ensure client is comfortable. It's a very good comfortable situation and atmosphere. Address the client by name. Just call to the exact name, client name. And invite social conversation to reduce the anxiety. Initial social conversation reduce the anxiety. Next keyword is watch for nonverbal behavior as a sign of client's emotional state. It means it's a shake of the hands, shake of food, and some kind of tics and sights of view, other things, something. And invite clients to describe his or her reason for coming to talk. What the reason they are coming. And also keyword is allow clients time to respond, give the time, relax, comfort. And indicate that you are interested in the person. You are very interested to the other person. First time open to the client from the counseling. These things is the keyword for relationship building for the counseling. And stage 2. Stage 2 is the in-depth exploration. This is a problem assessment, stage 2. So while the counselor and the clients are in the process of establishing a relationship through the stage 1, a second process is taking place. For example, problem assessment. This step involves the collection and the classification of information about the client's life situation and the reason for seeking counseling, why he seek the counseling to me. All include that, take place. So assessment refers to anything counselor to do to gather information and draw conclusions about the concerns of clients. So clients have some concern about the information and some conclusion. So assessment takes place at the beginning of the counseling process, but some degree of assessment take place throughout the counseling process with the purpose of finding missing pieces in the puzzle, for example, the client. According to the Seligman, 1996, assessment should attempt to recognize the importance and uniqueness of the client. In a way, saying to the person, you are special and I want to get to know you and understanding why you are the way you are. Say again, you are very special and I want to get to know you and understand why you are the way you are, why you are coming in. The counselor needs such knowledge about the client so that nothing is left out. For example, you might have left out the important piece of information about your client, which may affect the counseling or therapeutic process. So why assess the client? Why? The assess client. So it should be remembered that you are assessing your client not to the purpose of judging or evaluating the client. The purpose of assessment is to seek classification. You want to know about your client. Seligman suggests the following reason for assessing the client. What the reason? Seligman suggested. First suggestion is enable counselors to make an accurate diagnosis. So first time is diagnosis because the first step is a diagnosis. As you know, this the car is problem, and what's the problem? So in the service center is check the diagnosis first, right? That's all. And determine a person's suitability for the particular treatment plan. The client, the counselor says to the client is very specified and special. So particular treatment. I suggest a particular plan for you. It's a unique plan. Also enable counselors to develop a treatment plan. This is very enabled. Sure to do. It's available to do. And make goals setting easier and achievement of goals measurement. This also the Seligman is reason, suggests this reasoning. And next reason is enable assessment of environmental or context. So environmental or context is also the reason for assessment plan. And finally, he suggests to facilitate generation of options and alternatives. There are some alternatives. Alternatives means this other major is choice among them. Alternative means is switch to other options. And also he said is what to access. Why access you? Why access client? And next he suggests what to access. The Hackney and Comini is 2005 published. They listed the following important components of assessing the client. So important components. First, identifying data. First, identify the data. Name, address, phone number, etc. So this is for these things to enable the counselors to contact and give them indication of conditions under which the client lives in. So identify data means is some physical content. And also identify data is includes age, gender, material status, marital situation, married or not, and occupation. These things give an indication of the age of the client and some background about martial status. It's very important for if she's married or not. Quite married. Also have children or not. And next important component is the problems presented. The client presents the problems to the counselors. So present the problems exactly the way the client reports them, and the following questions might reveal additional information. So how does the problem interfere with the client's daily life? How does the problems interfere with the client's daily life? And what are the behaviors, thoughts, and feeling associated with the problems? The problems affected your behavior and thought and feeling. Wow. And how often and how long has the problem existed? This is get the information from the client. It's a pattern of events, for example, when, with whom, is it practicable, you can guess that, you can forecast that, with whom, when, there's some kind of pattern or not. Right? These things is presented by the this problem is presented by the client. And next important component is client's current lifestyle. So how does the client spend a typical date? How does the client spend a typical date? And what social, religious, and recreational activities are the clients involved? The client is involved with church or some social community and recreation, hobby. What is the nature of the client's educational situation? This education level is also very important component for after access. And next, what special characteristics about the client? For example, age, physical, and cultural, etc. What special characteristics about the client? And the next important component is family history. Is also very important component for what access, what to access. Family information, family history, father and mother, that is their age, occupation, personalities, roles, relationship with client. And siblings age, present life, and relationship with the client. How many of your siblings, boys and girls? And family stability, jobs, family moves, and religion, something like that. This is family history. And the next important component of what to access is personal history, medical history. Did you have an illness or injury, car accident, something like that. And educational history, is academic performance. What is your last degree, something. Extracurricular activities, and hobbies and interests, and relationship with peers. And personal history includes the careers, which job has, type of jobs, relationship with colleagues and fellow workers. So ask what's around the client. And also personal history includes the client's personal goals in life. What is your goal for your life? Personal goals. And the next important component is a description of the client during the interview. It includes the physical appearance, for example, posture, dress, gesture, facial expression, and first expression, and what kind of dress, something. It's physical appearance. How does the client relate the counselor in the session? How does client relate to counselor in the session? And that's description of the client during the interview. Client warmth, readiness, motivation, and passivity, etc. And also were the client's remarks logical, connected to others. This is a logical connectivity. And the last important component how to access is summary and recommendation. It includes the connection between problems stated by the client and other information collected. It gets correction and then summarized. Should the client be assigned to a particular counselor? Also, are the goals for counselor stated by the client realistic? That question. Now, how much counseling might be required? You are coming again, and every month, can you come in 1 time, 2 times to my office, or something like that. This is a summary, and then recommendation you come in here. And next, stage 2 shows to the what is the nature of the problem presented by the client. What is the nature of the prior problem presented by the client? Here the counselor tries to get a specific details regarding the nature and content of the problem presented by the client, as well as other problems that may have been mentioned during the earlier and subsequent sessions. Usually, a person will seek counseling because of a problem, and during the counseling session, something else might be revealed. Hence, it is important to have more than one session with the client to determine more specifically the problem encountered. Pearson, some famous scholars suggest that to understand in more detail the problem stated by the client, the counselor could explore the following areas. First, feeling associated with the problems, for example, my anger, my fear. I think 2 weeks later we will talk about how we escape the fear, my anger. And next, thinking of associated with the problem, for example, client's beliefs, perceptions, images, something like that. Behaviors associated with the problem, for example, rude, insults, avoid being a crowd. So I don't like the crowd people, crowded. And next area is psychological complaints associated with the problems, for example, stomachache, or unable to sleep. Interpersonal effects, for example, quarrels with family members, keeps to himself or herself, bullies classmates, something like that. This is for interpersonal effect. These things the counselor could explore the area. Besides these sources of information obtained from the counseling sessions, the counselor could also obtain additional information about clients using psychological tests and self-rating. So, for example, for three kind of some question about the client problems. First, is there a pattern or event leading to the problem? How long has the problem persist, and does it interfere with the client's life? And how has the client coped with the problem? So first, is there a pattern of events leading the problem? Means it's counselors ask to the client, when does the problem occur? Where? With whom? And what happens before the problem and after the problem occurs? What makes the problem better or disappear for a while? What makes the problem worse? These kind of questioning is leading to the problem, to the client. How long has the problem persisted, and does it interfere with the client's life? Question. How long has the problem existed? How often does the problem occur? How long does the problem last when it does occur? In what ways does the problem interfere with client's daily functioning? And next question is, how has the client copied with the problem? Example, how has the client coped? What has and has not worked? What strengths, resources, and support systems does the client have to help him or her change? For example, understanding parents, or siblings, or good friends. Okay. What is the client's worldview? Gender, religion, ethnicity, peers. Okay. What is your worldview? Also, next question is stage 2 is how how is assessment information to be used in assessment information. There are different ways in which a counselor uses the information collected about the client. And some counselors look mainly for patterns of behavior. Others use it for planning relevant counseling strategies and approaches to use with problems. For example, a person who complains that he is unable to make friends. It's very difficult to make a friend. The counselor might look at the client's behavior in interpersonal relationship and use behavior stages that emphasize acquisition of social skill and interpersonal strategies that deals with relationship between people. So how do I make the friends? It's very difficult at the time. He suggests or emphasize the acquisition, the social skills and interpersonal strategies. So the counselors who does not assess the problems presented by their clients are more likely to formulate wrong conclusions about client problems and irrelevant or non-workable counseling approaches and strategies. So as a result, not only is more time spent on hit and miss counseling, but ultimately clients might live with the same set of problems they brought to the first session. Assessment collected at the earliest stage of the counseling process will help counselor formulate hypotheses. Assessment is an ongoing process during counseling. Assessment give an idea to the counselor the intensity of the problem and how client is coping with the problem. This is for stage 2. So in-depth exploration problem assessment. And next, stage 3 is goal setting. Goal setting. It means it's a commitment to action. So the setting goals is very important to the success of counseling. It involves making a commitment to a set of conditions, to a cause of action or an outcome. Goals are the result or outcomes the client wants to achieve at the end of counseling. Any counseling wants to find action. Final conclusion. Goals help the counselor and client determine what cannot and what cannot be accomplished through counseling. In goal setting, the client identifies, with the help of the counselor, specific ways in which they want to resolve the issues and what course of action should be taken to resolve the client's problem. So it means it's focus the client, it means problem. Focus of the counselor is problem plus client plus counseling process plus goals. According to Nixon and Glover says, once a goal is formulated and selected by a problem solver, it is likely to be rehearsed in the working memory and stored in the long-term memory. A goal encoded in this way then becomes a major heuristic for the problem solver as he or she interacts with the environment. With clear goals, clients are more likely to motivate to work toward achieving these goals. With goals, clients learn how to structure their lives toward achieving the goals. With goals, it is easier for the counselor to select and evaluate appropriate counseling interventions. And goals are stated clearly. Both the counselor and client have a better understanding of what is to be accomplished. Clarity of purpose allows the counselor to work more directly with the client's problem or concerns. Stating goals in behavioral terms enhance the client's understanding of what is to be done. It also allows both client and counselor to recognize the process when it happens, which reinforces further progress. Goal setting is a central part of the change process that people often take for granted. And yet, many people are not very skilled at setting their own goals and helping others to identify and set goals. Goals can motivate clients to make desired changes and help counselors to evaluate process. This is for goal setting. And next stage 4 is counseling intervention. Counseling intervention. It means there are different point of view concerning what a good counselor should do with clients depending on the theoretical position that the counselor subscribes to. For example, the person-centered approach. The person-centered approach suggests the counselor get involved rather than intervenes by placing emphasis on the relationship. The behavioral approach attempts to initiate activities that help clients alter their behavior. After completion of the counseling intervention, the client acting upon plans, client managing and coping with daily functions, excess of support system and support being associated, and last, identification of stages for maintenance of change. This is a stage for counseling interventions. And the last, stage 5. 5 stages: evaluation, and termination or referral. And so stage 5 is evaluation, termination, or referral. Oh, sorry, it's missing one word. Referral. Terminating the counseling process will have to conduct with sensitivity, with the client knowing that it will have to end. Note that each of these stages continues even though the counselor and client moves to the next step. For example, after built a relationship, the counselor moves to stage 2, which involves assessing the problem encountered by the client. In the meantime, the counselor continues to strengthen the relationship has been built. In other words, stage 1 or the building of the relationship does not stop but is ongoing until stage 5, which involves termination, or perhaps the client is referred for further actions. In these stages, closure disclosed and planned. This stage. Also in this stage, appointments intervals lengthened, and also in this stage, available resources and referrals identified and accessed. And last, in this stage, assurance provided to the clients of the option to return to counseling if necessary. So this is for 5 stages or stages between the counselor and client. Stage 1, relationship building. Stage 2, in-depth exploration, goal setting, counseling intervention, evaluation and termination or referral. These 5 stages, and go back, feedback, turn around, and circle. These things is also I briefly introduced frequently asked the question about this stage. Just question introduced, no answer. Answer is bad different. First, what's the difference between a psychologist and a psychologist? Psychologist and psychologist. This is frequently a question. This is for approach to theoretical. What's the difference between the terms counseling, therapy, and psychotherapy? Counseling, therapy, and psychotherapy. Let's quick or simple answers. In one sense, there are no difference, since they all implies that you talk to psychological health professional to help solve various problems in your life. In other sense, there is a significant difference. I view the term counseling to mean that the short-term and much focused approaches is taken for solving the client's problems. I view the term psychotherapy is to mean that the long-term and more in-depth approach is taken. The term therapy is simply an abbreviated version of the term psychotherapy. You know me? What is the difference between the term counseling, therapy, and psychotherapy? Also, many questions is what's the difference between counselor, therapist, psychotherapist, psychologist, psychotherapist, social worker, marriage and family therapist, etc. There are many kinds of major in the university. If you're concerned about that, find that. And next many question is, can I just talk to someone I know who's good as a listener and get the same help that I would promote therapist? Also question is, will my psychologists think I am weird, crazy, or sick? Some kind of question. Also is how long will I be treatment? How long take time to treat? Will I be sent off the mental hospital against my will? Will I fall apart if I start talking about upsetting thoughts and feelings? Am I failure if I go to the psychologist? It's very important. Can I just read a book, attend a support group, etc., and get the help I need? That's the question. Also, last many question is, can I just put my problems behind me? Move on, and hope for the best next time, something like that. These things is question about frequently asked for the psychological health profession. These things. Okay. Today we will start the essential of counseling about two things. One thing is steps in the counseling process, 10 steps. And classified into 5 separate stages. So 5 separate strategies and 10 steps for counseling. Let me remind again the 10 steps for counseling. I introduced the basic ground rules. First, encourage the clients to talk about the feeling. Validate the feeling with reflective listening. And next step is let the client have the chance to speak and provide the missing information where needed. Talk about the client's views and goals. Communicate what it takes to get to the point needed. And observe signs of trouble and prepare for possible violence and threats. Encourage clients to develop positive energy toward devising a solution. And establish a regular schedule for follow-up, discussion, and give feedback. And last, agree on what steps are needed to be taken by the client to change the client's situation. These 10 steps is basic ground rule to establish counseling. And then these 10 steps can be classified in 5 stages. Okay. This is all today class. Okay. We will start next class. Thanks for joining this class and see you next week. Bye.